We're just kind of on the verge of possible cell signals. It's really hit and miss out here. Just because of all the steep canyons. And satellite too, for that matter. If anyone's curious, I used to run a spot messenger for the, rescue me spot, satellite messenger. I still have it, but I haven't subscribed in a long time because a lot of the areas I go into like this, when I had the tracking service on, it would lose me all the time. So it was like, if I really need it and I fall down one of those cliffs, which is probably the time I'm going to need it, is it going to work? And I don't know. I mean, like, it was good to have just to have, and it would send signals sometimes, but I mean, is that what you want? I mean, the personal locator beacons are work down there because they work on a different setup. You might have to wait for a satellite to come overhead, but they're constantly transmitting, where the spot will stop transmitting after a certain amount of time. It would be nice if you could actually test it without like the SOS function, without actually having SOS come. I know it'd be hard to do, but as far as sending like the I'm okay signals or the I need help signals, because I've tested those, and in some of these areas here it was almost 50-50, and that's not cool. There was lots of them that didn't come through, and I understand why. I mean, it's just a limitation of the technology, but since this is kind of the area I spend a lot of my time out in, if I'm out in the grasslands, like, oh yeah, no, it'll work no problem. There's plenty of sky. You can see how dense those trees get in there. Has anyone ever actually used any type of messaging system in an emergency? Have you been in an emergency where you needed to call for help? Where I picked up a spot, there was a few times where I had some run-ins that I wish I had one. The worst one was I was with my first wife, and we were on it was supposed to be a 5-day backpacking trip in Clearwater. And we've done a fair bit of back camping, normally just like one-day stuff. We didn't do anything multi-day at that point. I think we did a couple two-nighters. But really the only thing that changes is the amount of food and water you have to bring in. There was plenty of water along the way, so that wasn't an issue. We overpacked though. We ended up leaving a lot of stuff in the back of the truck. When we got to the trailhead, we were just like, yeah, need to down this, so. And a lot of my camping gear and hiking gear back then was super old school. I mean, we were using like the green steel Coleman propane bottles, the screw-on propane top for our stove, because that's what I had. I did have a little white gas one, but we didn't find it. I couldn't find it for that trip. I don't know exactly where I stuck it away. I found it when we got back, obviously, like you always do. But anyway, a lot of our gear was heavier. We had a really good hike up. When we started the hike, though, we ran into a tour group, because they do tour groups. And for this hike, you have to register for it. So you have to register at the ranger station. You have to tell them where you're going to be, where your check-in points are, how long you're going to be out. And if you're not out, you have to sign out on your way out. And if you're not signed out by your date, they give you, I can't remember, it's 24 or 48 hours, and they send a ranger out to look for you. There's only X amount of people that can hike in the area in a year. There isn't too many people that go up there, though. Most of them come through the tour groups, so if you're a local, there's a different amount of people that are allowed to come through locally, whereas the tour groups aren't counted towards that, so there's typically not an issue with getting in. Anyway, we didn't have a problem anyway. Well, we signed up, we got to the trailhead, we unpacked our heaviest gear that we didn't really need, and we started our hike. And we ran into one of the tour groups, and the tour guide was like, oh, well, did you guys bring water with you? And we're like, oh yeah, we brought water, but we got water filtration, and we're just going to fill up as we go. He's like, oh, well, you don't want to take the meadow route, then you want to take the lower creek route, so that way you'll have access to water. There's no water access for the meadow route until you get to the lodge and the bear caches. And we're like, oh, okay, cool, thanks, because we were actually planning on kind of backtracking from the meadow route to the first camping area, which is Battle Bluff, just below Battle Bluff. And it was a beautiful hike, but unfortunately the creek route was just like, it was like pretty much like the canyon beside me here. You start at the bottom and it's just switchback up, back and back and back and back to get to the top, where the meadow road actually circumvents the cliff and takes this nice meandering, as you know, twice as long, but nice meandering path without much issue, and kind of bypasses the first camp and gets you midway into the meadows before the ranger station, the first cabin area. And of course we were going to tent it anyway, but that's kind of, there's a lake there called Fight Lake. In any case, we made it to the first, we took that line, and we were kind of cursing ourselves with all the switchbacks, because there was a creek right beside us the whole time. It was just 200 feet below us. And on the map, it, you know, we had a map with us, but it wasn't a topo map, so we couldn't really, we could see that the path on the map, it looked much shorter, but it was like just as long, because it switched, or it's not quite a bit longer, because it switched back so much, and it cut our times down way more than we thought it was going to be, just because on the map itself, without topo lines, we weren't able to tell exactly how steep it was. And like, we kind of knew the area. There wasn't satellite photos, and there wasn't Google images of that area back then, because it's not populated. We'll make it up to the top of the first camp area by just overlooking Battle Mountain, or Battle Mountain, Battle Plateau, Battle Mountain. Well, let's say Battle Mountain. I'll look it up when I go. And everything's going good. Dog's happy. Wife's happy. Oh, gross. Scared that one. Scared me too. And we kept going to the next campsite. We had to go through the field and the meadow, and we were already up to pretty much this elevation that we needed to be at. I think there's maybe only 50 to 100 feet difference from where we were to where we had to be elevation wise. So it was a nice, you know, meandering stool, but it's getting much later than we expected it to be. And it's getting dark, and I made the wrong decision of pushing ahead, because we were only I want to say maybe a kilometer to a kilometer and a half from where we wanted to be, and we had to go through these big meadows, and they were just absolutely gorgeous, and the sun was just starting to set, and the meadows were just full of these alpine flowers that you get up there, just all sorts of colors. They look like big paintbrushes. Just gorgeous. But we needed to get that extra kilometer and a half in to get to where the bear caches were, so we could cache our food. And as we're walking through this field, my wife steps in a gopher hole, and we're trying to cross this little, I don't really want to say a creek. It was more of like a swampy area where a creek kind of went through, but the meadow was so flat that it just kind of made it into a big muck. And she got her ankle caught on a root in the hole and fell with her bag, and she fell kind of face first, and she tried to get herself sideways to stop herself from falling, but her ankle was caught in this root, and she hurt herself right good. Not only is she all wet now, and it was starting to get really cold. Like we're quite high up. I'll have to look up the elevation amounts, but it got impressively cold quickly once the sun went down up there. And I'm used to that kind of thing from around here, but it was almost tenfold up there. It got cold quick. So now she's soaking wet. She's got this twisted ankle, which went purple almost right away as soon as I got her out of the water. And I could tell she's like legitimately hurt. Like she, you know, like the look on her face, and she's upset with herself. She's angry. She didn't want this to happen. Jeez, gross. Freaking everywhere on the side of the road right now. And I had to make a decision. I already screwed up. It was already dark. And I had to make a decision whether we were going to stay there or try and make the other. By that point, it was maybe half a kilometer. Like, we were almost at the end of the meadow, and then there's a green belt, and then we just had to get through that green belt, and then we'd be at the lake, which is on the other side of the meadow, maybe 500 meters. but her ankle was so bad she couldn't put any weight on it. So we had to decide to just set up tent right there where we were, in the middle of the field. There was only one little tiny outcrop of trees that we hung our food from because we couldn't get to the bear cache. And there's quite a bit of, there's a large amount of grizzlies in that area, and just black bears and everything. But yeah, there's lots. We saw like quite a few scat piles all over the place. So I was really sketched out about camping in the middle of this empty field, in the only area that there is some trees, with all of our food out. And she just finished yelling and screaming from falling, which is you know, a good warning sign for predators to come in, because they're curious, and it's evening and night, and that's when they start doing their rounds and doing their hunting. And there would definitely be some predators around, because we were right by within a kilometer of the ranger station where the campground is, where the bear caches are. And even though there's bear caches, there's going to be food in them. They're not airtight or anything, they're just big steel garbage cans basically. And the bears are going to frequent that area because they're going to come in looking for, you know, scraps from people, even though you're not supposed to leave anything behind. And there's signs everywhere about no trace. It, you know, doesn't always happen. Typically doesn't always happen. Anyway, I had that fear that there was going to be a bear. And not only that, but I had to get this tent set up quick because she was starting to get hypothermic, because the temperature dropped so quickly and she was sopping wet. So I had to get her out, get her changed. We did the whole sleeping bag thing with dry clothes, and the dog helped warm her up. And I wouldn't say she was hypothermic, but she was definitely in danger of being hypothermic. But managed to warm her up, filled her up with a bunch of drugs, some ibuprofen, Tylenol, take the edge off a little bit, and managed to get some sleep. I didn't sleep too well that night, not because of the tent or the ground or anything. All the gear we brought was perfectly fine. It was just the stress of her being injured, and, you know, us not being where we need to be, because the ranger was expecting us to be at the ranger station. That the other group that we ran into was also expecting us to be there, so they would be wondering why we weren't at the tent site, which is just out front of the cabin area that they were going to be staying at. So I didn't really want them to be worrying about us and sending someone to look for us. At that time, it probably would have been a good thing, but you know, you worry, you just don't want to cause a fuss. I was hoping in the morning when we woke up, her ankle would be better. And on that, we woke up in the morning, and yeah, her ankle wasn't good at all. It was just puffed out and purple. She still couldn't put any weight on it. So I had to take my backpack on my back, her backpack on my front, like you see all the tourists doing. My backpack on, her backpack on my front. She just couldn't carry it. We dumped out all of our extra water. We knew we were heading back, and it wasn't, you know, that far from the creek source. Pick up some water. We could filter it there, and it was just less weight. And I had to take my belt off, my extra ropes that I had for the fly for the tent, and created like a sling so I could basically tie her to me, so I could take the weight off of her leg. She was able to put a little bit of weight on it, like walking wise, without the backpack on. Not a whole lot. I was getting quite worried about it because we had a long way to go. Like, it was a whole day of hiking with, you know, good feet. So the plan was to try and make it back to the first camp, see how she was doing, camp there if we had to the second night, and make her way back to the truck the third. When we got to the second campsite, filled up our water and everything, We just started walking down the trail, and I could hear something in the bush behind us. And it wasn't like the sounds that you want to hear. There was something walking around the campsite, and it was heavy. And then we heard the clicking like they make with their jaws. And it was like, oh Jesus, there's a bear like scouting our camp. Well, we can't set up the tent. We didn't have the tent set up yet. We still had our bags out. We were just resting. And I was doctoring up her feet because she had to walk so funny, kind of shuffling with her foot, that her good foot was now all full of blisters. Even with the tape and the bandages and stuff on it, it was still, you know, she couldn't do anything about it. So I just taped her foot up even more, and like, look, we gotta just keep going. It was only midday. It's only lunch. We gotta make it to the truck. This bear's not gonna, you know, just disappear. So we did that. I put the backpacks back on, strapped her to me, and started hobbling down the trail, hoping the bear just wouldn't follow us because the switchbacks were so steep and narrow. And we never saw the bear on the switchbacks, but as soon as we got down to the bottom, he showed up again. And this time we saw him, and he was right behind us, but he wouldn't come too close. He was just trailing us. And he would stay back about 200 meters or so, and he just, if we slowed down, he would slow down. If we sped up, he would speed up. And he was sniffing and clicking, and it just wasn't good. You could tell he knew that she was injured. And we had a ways to go, and by this point the pain's getting really bad for her. She was almost a bit delusional out of that, and I had to keep just coaching her, like, come on, we can't stop. We just need to keep moving. Just one more foot, you know, just keep it up. And it started getting dark, and we only had maybe a kilometer left, and I wasn't going to stop and get the extra flashlight out of the backpack because we had our headlights already out. And she tried her headlamp, and it wouldn't work. I think we got damaged when she fell in the water. So we didn't have waterproof gear back then. Like, you know, things were waterproof, but, you know, most of it was from the 70s or 80s. And the seals were all gone anyway. Her headlamp stopped working. My headlamp was still working. I had a little tiny pen light that I gave to her to use. And she had another one in her bag that she managed to fish out of the front. So we basically had two lights each, a pen light. But we couldn't really just stop and take all our gear out because this bear was behind us. So I managed to get those lights out, and we were walking. It's just starting to get dark, kind of like it is now, where you can still see things. We still had about a kilometer to go. And right now it's just a road like this, Forest Service Road, heavily treed on each side. And she's getting quite delusional and just exhausted, and I'm tired too. I'm carrying like twice the gear I normally would, and I'm just running on adrenaline. This bear is still behind us. And then my headlamp goes out, and all we have is this little pen light, and we're like, we just, you know, gotta keep going. We're almost to the truck. Don't need the lights. We're on the road. We don't need to see where we're going. Just stay on the road. We're good. We'll be fine. Just keep walking. So keep going. Go another maybe 20 feet, and her friggin' pen light goes out. All of her lights are gone. It's dark, but, you know, enough where you can see things. And she turns around and she sees the bear back there, and he's just standing like right across the road, and he's just slowly wandering towards us. And she's like, you know, we have to keep going. I'm like, yeah, I know, we have to keep going. So I managed to get out of my side pouch on her bag. We had a little candle lantern that we use inside the tent, and I still have the thing. I actually bring it whenever I go camping just because of this trip. Get the lighter out of my pocket, light this candle lantern, And that's all the light we had, was this little freaking candle lantern for the next kilometer back to the truck. And the whole time the bear just stood right behind us, sniffing, snorting, grunting, clicking, but he never got any closer. He always stayed about 100 meters or so back, like just enough where you can see him. And we managed to make it to the truck by candlelight. She ran right for the door, tossed her in the cab. I ran around back, threw the bags in the back. I didn't even want to be honest. I just wanted to toss my junk on the ground and get in that cab of that truck and just whatever, I'll come and get it another day type thing. But you know, cooler heads prevailed. Tossed it in the back of the cab, got in the truck, turned the key on. She's yelling at me to go, 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 go. And as soon as I flick the headlights on, Grizzly's just like right in front of us. He's like 20 feet in front of the truck, and he's just standing there, just sniff, sniff, sniff. But he just stops. He just doesn't move. He just stands there. Once I turn the headlights on, he just froze. And then he just turned to the left, went down the embankment. And I don't know where he went after that. I didn't care. I just put the thing in reverse. I didn't even turn the vehicle around. I just drove backwards as fast as I could without wrecking the truck until we got to a little pullover spot and turned the truck around. But we were both just done. We were so tired. There's only one hotel in the city of Clearwater when we made it back. We didn't even check in at the ranger station. We went right into the hotel there, and I walk in, leave her in the truck there with the dog. That was the other thing. When she fell, after she fell and hurt her leg, our dog decided to roll in our leavings in our pile and dig it up and roll in it. I don't know why, but he was caked in poop. So he stunk. I'm sure the bear smelled him. But yeah, he was just covered in flies and like a miserable dog. And just, we tried to wash him best we could in the creek, but yeah, he just stunk. Anyway, I had to go in and I talked to the lady. I'm like, look, I just need a room. I don't care what it is, how much it costs. I've been out in the bush for a few days. We've had an accident. I just need a room that we can sleep in for the night. You know, wife hurt her leg really bad, but I'm sure it'll be fine. I'll take her in the hospital in the morning. I'm pretty sure it's just a sprain. She's got some really bad blisters. We're done. We need a room to stay in. The only problem is I have a dog, and I really don't want to leave him in the truck. Can we please take her dog in? And she was so kind. She helped us out. She let me take the dog in. I didn't tell her anything about how bad the dog smelled. And thankfully, I brought all the gear and everything in long before I brought the dog in. Dog came last and just kind of snuck him into the room. And we realized, like, we were just, not only were we exhausted, but we were hungry. Like, we didn't eat that whole day, and the amount of calories we burnt and the adrenaline that was running. All we had left were some pierogies. And the time we got in there was like 1 in the morning, so all their, you know, cookery stuff was all long shut down. So we had these, well, it used to be frozen pierogies and some bacon, and I couldn't like just fire up the stove in the hotel room, although I was really tempted to. We ended up just heating up the pierogies by running the hot water on them, because they're already cooked with the bacon and onions and everything, like pre-cooked. And we ate like mildly warm, soggy pierogies, but man, did those ever feel good going down, because I was just so out of energy for that. They felt amazing. Tasted like bunk, but felt amazing. And surprisingly, it didn't turn her off of backpacking. We went quite a few times after that. She wasn't scared of bears or anything along those lines. But yeah, that's my two 2 bear stories. I don't really consider that being chased by the bear because he never really chased us. He just followed us with intent for a long ways. But I think he could tell that we couldn't run away. Like he could tell that we weren't, that she was injured. And I think he was just biding his time until it got dark, waiting for her to lay down. You know, it's a smart thing to do. And I think the headlights just kind of freaked him out because everything was pitch black, and all of a sudden bright lights, probably semi-blinded him, and he just decided to mess off because he didn't know what that was, because he's not a city bear. Anyway, on my way home here, one more quick story, almost in the same area. We're hiking with another one of my girlfriends at the time, and we're hiking with these 2 Austrian couple that we ran into, and just along creek bed. We were going to take these switchbacks up to a little lookout point. They were going to hike along the creek, and then we were going to cut back down to meet them. And just as we started going up the switchbacks, we hear this just blood-curdling screams. So we're like, oh no, like something's really bad, something's gone bad, we gotta go back. And so we go back down, and along the creek bed we could see Buddy's backpack all spread out everywhere. It's like, oh no, he got something's got him. And we find this canister of bear spray like about 20 feet away from where his backpack was, and pick it up, and the canister has chew holes in it, like chew marks. It's been all dented up, and the safety cable's still on the thing. And then we look up, like we're looking around, we're clearly now looking for bears. Don't see any. But all of a sudden we look farther down the creek, and just around the corner, one of them pops out and starts like yelling and waving at us, bear, bear, bear. So, you know, I grab the bear spray, pull the safety off, and wander back over towards him. We didn't bother grabbing his backpack because it was all torn open, and stuff was kind of all over the place. But what ended up happening was he couldn't get the safety off, so he threw the can of bear spray at the bear, and the bear grabbed it and started chewing on it. So I guess it did work. It bought him some time, and that gave him enough time to toss his backpack off and run down the creek bed. And then the bear, you know, as bears do, they will sniff and tear and dig into things, and dug into his backpack. So they were fine. I tried to give him the bear spray back, and he didn't want it. He said it was useless. He couldn't use it. So I kept it, and I still have it today, even though it's long expired. But I'd still take it with me hiking and camping today. I'll throw a picture or a little video clip of the bear spray up here. So yeah, you guys have an awesome night. Find something awesome about your day, like wild animal bear encounter stories, and share it with somebody. Thanks kindly.